Matt.
Hi, Matt. So today we thought we would follow on from our little conversation last week about soul and about how our soul has come here with a purpose, and we are we have a purpose, and that is why we're here. And my question to you, Matt, is: do you believe that we should spend our life discovering that or rediscovering that purpose, or should we just float and let it show us the way?
That is a potentially really complex question. I know. Just chill.
Simplify.
Just chill.
Simplify.
Okay, I would ask that question without the should.
Okay, go. Ask the question.
What was the question? Should we follow our soul's path?
Well, it's not necessarily about following the soul's path. We are going to, from my perspective, we're constantly going to be zapped back in.
Right.
So when we start veering off course, there will be this, like all this stuff that will happen to us that reminds us of where we need to go.
Yeah.
And that might be, actually part of the plan and all the things in between. But my question to you is, should we focus our life on rediscovering that purpose, or should we just float and go down the river?
I think that they're both one and the same for me, because if you
Yeah. Still not the same thing, Matt.
if you follow the soul's path,
Yes.
it's going to be the path of least resistance.
Right.
So that is the equivalent of going down the river. I'll take that facial.
Okay.
Is it not?
But that's true. But my point isn't that. That I agree with.
Right.
My point is, should I be trying to just rediscover it? Do I spend time seeking that soul purpose, or do I just accept who I am as I am and continue to feel the bumps that keep pushing me down the river?
Good. So I'm glad we now rephrase the question so we can start now. Good. So
Was it a different question?
Yep. So it's really, I think some souls would come here to do that for sure. Just happy with the bumps, and that's paradoxically their soul purpose, to do that.
Okay.
I think when we're talking about soul, it's more about, last time we spoke about that infinite intelligence.
Yeah.
That source energy.
Source energy that starts somewhere and then becomes life.
Mathematically, it would be zero. Scientifically, it would be represented as a zero, or an empty circle that's paradoxically full of nothing.
Right.
The soul is an expansion of that.
Right.
So the soul really just wants to experience. Now, whether that's a good experience or a bad experience, that's entirely up to the person, right? So whether let's say you go through something, whether that's a good thing, bad thing, great thing, terrible thing, that is entirely up to you, because that's going to be completely shaped by who you are as a person, your values, your beliefs in what right and wrong is, good and bad, etc. That's all going to shape that experience for you. So you and I could go through the same thing. One of us would hate it, one of us would love it.
Yeah, perception.
Yeah. So it all comes back to the perception. So for me, I think it is just the path, that's the lighter, easier path. And if you've ever gone against kind of, let's say, your dream or what you feel drawn to, it inevitably ends up in pain, sometimes disease, sometimes dysfunction, anything that doesn't feel good generally.
Yeah, okay, so I'm with you. My question isn't that, Matt. My question is more about, there are seekers in life.
Yes.
So you could say, so we are on this life, we have a soul purpose that is driving us, and everything feels good when we are moving in that direction.
Yep.
My point is that now that I'm conscious
Yep.
of that, should I seek to rediscover the purpose? Or should I just float down the river?
We're just gonna get.
Can you hear the difference?
every time.
You didn't answer my question.
Should the seeker seek
The answer
The
of
answer.
rediscovery. Should we seek that? So I'm just trying to understand, is that important? So from my perspective, I wouldn't say it is.
Okay.
I wanted to know what your perspective was. That's why we're here. I'm trying to.
I'll give it to you 3 times. So,
doing that.
the journey of the seeker.
Okay, yes. So that's an archetype.
Seeker is an archetype.
Okay.
The journey of the seeker is to find the truth.
Okay.
So, what is the truth?
And whatever you want it to be.
Well, the truth is essentially what works.
Right.
The truth is finding your truth as a, let's say, spiritually congruent being.
Mhm.
Now, if you don't follow that, that is absolutely fine. It's your journey, right? So it's not an answer of, well, you should do that, or you could do that, or you would do that. You will eat one.
Yeah, right. So
You'll have
even
an
if
easier
you are,
time following it.
so therefore, if you're going to have an easier time, would we suggest then that maybe it is a good idea to seek the rediscovering of what that soul's purpose is on this earth in this moment in this incarnation?
Don't know if I'd say easy, because it often involves some pain.
Right.
But it is always worth it. That journey is always worth
Okay, yeah,
seeking.
yes, I agree, and I hear you.
So what's your take? Do you want me to ask that 7 different ways?
Yes, please. Can you repeat the question?
Is it worth, for you, is it worth seeking your truth?
For me personally, I feel like,
And sorry, just part 2 to that question, how important is that on your priority scale?
right, I feel like more than anything, instead of actually seeking that rediscovery and searching to find it, to find the easier path or the path that is, you know, the potential least resistance, or the potential giving the, you know, finding that way forth in you know, following my Tao or my Tao, and really like honing in on that as an idea. So for example, what we talked about last time was that when spirit splits into soul, and soul actively chooses the life that they want to incarnate into, that when that happens, they have a particular purpose. So for example, the example we had last time was the gardener.
Mhm.
So a soul chose that they were going to be a gardener. So they chose parents that were specifically capable of demonstrating or supporting that way of being. And my question, or my idea is that you will feel like, you've already said this, but it's like, it will become a path of least resistance, or it will become a path that creates contentment and joy if you're on the path, if you're following soul's purpose. So whether or not, from my perspective, you're going to spend time thinking mentally about rediscovering that, I believe it's more a feeling. And I believe that you should feel into that rather than think about it. And thinking about it is what I was getting to, essentially. If you are trying to seek and rediscover, you are essentially putting so much time and effort into the thinking to logically understand what it is that this rediscovery is going to be, and therefore what trajectory of this path. So that you're trying to rediscover, oh, I needed to be a gardener, so I'll do everything to ensure that that is that. And then you're thinking your way into something, and then I guess from my perspective, I've probably felt that in some ways, oh, this is my way, I understand my purpose, and then I will go down that path and I'm like, oh fuck, this isn't working out. Or like, you know, we talked about recently, Matt and I have both been in business for quite some time, and like over a decade each, and you know, when I look at other people that have been in business for minutes, they are doing much better
Yeah.
in some aspects, not obviously in
Yeah.
the ways that we see as important and, you know, different things for different people.
Yeah.
But in terms of this world, systemically, you know, economics of creating a business, I would probably say that there's aspects to the way that I do my business that aren't as skilled as others. And I haven't really put energy there, and that's definitely something that's adjusting and changing as I move forward now. But it is for me, it's quite an interesting thing, because I feel like I was seeking and searching for the right way to go. And I was trying to be navigated by the bumps that kept pushing me back onto the path. What I found was that when I let go and I just accepted that the path was there and that I was on it, I accepted and deeply trusted that I was on the path, and that everything that fell into my lap and that everything that was aligning for me and everything that worked in the way that it has and does is right. Instead of trying to seek, I'm meant to be the gardener. Now I understand my divine purpose in this life, and now I can just go forth with that logical understanding. So my thinking is more that we don't really need that logical understanding. We can just go.
So now I understand what you're asking.
Oh wow. That's a very direct question.
So we can get fixated on what we either feel we should be or we think we should be.
Yeah, understanding that rediscovering.
So that can be two completely different things, because we all have things that we feel that we should be, from parental, from religious cultures.
What do we have? What are the 4 things, the 4 traumas? Mum, dad, religion,
religious ideologies, society.
Conditioning.
So that brings into Carl Jung's 4 concepts of consciousness.
Okay.
Right? So if you picture a cross, okay, on one side of the line you've got intuition, sensation. So they're complementary opposites of each other. They're the yin and yang of each other. Then you've got thinking and feeling.
Okay.
So they're the complementary opposites of each other. To the degree you overthink, you lose the capacity to feel. So that's when you think about something so much, it becomes intellectualized. That doesn't become experienced.
Right.
So that's where a lot of people get lost.
Totally. And can I just take that for a moment? Recently, or last year, I was doing a course with a lady named Alex Alex by Portal, or Portal by Alex, and she talks a lot about the brain. Brain is her kind of go-to for everything. And one of the things that she would really talk about is in that moment of being triggered. You can no longer think. You can only feel.
Well, that's where emotions run the body.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like that is one of your most important tools to understand your patterns.
Yeah.
So if you can catch that moment of like, oh, I'm offline.
Well, it'll usually come in the form of pain on some level.
Right.
But it's about catching that and saying, okay, this is what's happened.
Right.
It takes, that's just making the unconscious conscious.
Right.
And the more we don't allow that to happen, we call it fate, we call it bad luck, poor me, etc., etc. So Carl Jung once said that intellectualism is a common cover-up for direct experience. Now, we can think and think and think and think, but that's going to, so the more we think about something, the more energized it becomes. If we don't do something with that, then that energy builds up in the mental field and essentially creates anxiety.
Which is really cool, because that's exactly what we would call, in terms of earth element. Earth element is all about digestion, and it's all about the digestion of all things. So digestion of food, and digestion of thought, and digestion of anything that's surrounding us, digestion of the environment, the experience we're living. And so if we're not actually digesting that, or we're not actually reaping the reward of the thought, we're not actually getting something from that.
Not absorbing the nutrients of the thought.
Exactly. So when we're not absorbing and we're not actually seeing the fruits, then we get stuck there. And in our day and age, we are literally we're constantly intellectualizing things, and we're constantly trying to understand it from our like
from our ego
logical mind.
Really, yeah.
And then when we have that, and so we're getting stuck in that place, but then, you know, if we look around in our world, who are the most successful, so to say, people? They're the ones that think. They're the lawyers, the accountants, the, you know, Fortune 500 businessmen, the ones that are thinking constantly, that are thinking all the time. And that we reward that.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on the definition of success.
Well, I did inverted bracket success, so I'm not. Okay, do you want to talk about success?
Well, it's before we get into the success thing. So it reminded me of a client I had years ago. He owned 3 law firms. I don't know exactly how that legal world works. We had 3
practices.
That's probably a better word than shop. We'll go with practices. So 3 practices, however many people working for him. He didn't need to work. He was a
wealthy person.
I never saw his bank account, but he was doing all right.
Yeah.
He was doing all right, and he was miserable. He worked 18 hours a day to avoid his wife. He had a beautiful home on
a beautiful place
overlooking the water, and he could never enjoy it. I said, why don't you enjoy it? Oh, my wife's at home. So some people would call his bank account success. Then what's the point of having all that when you don't get along with your wife, and you've got to spend a lot of that money on therapists to try and counter what you've got yourself into? So he was trying to therapize his way out of it, but the original thinking pattern that created the problem still is there.
Yes.
So
because he hasn't, like, if we come back to that cross that we're talking about, that thinking, feeling, he hasn't quite nailed that. Now I'm thinking, we've got the thinking, the feeling, and then what was the other one again?
Intuition, sensation.
Sensation. Now does it go up and down too, or is it just the cross line?
Oh, it can be up, down. They're just complementary opposites of each other.
Why do they cross?
That's just the image I got.
You just created that image? Oh, okay. Matt's image, everybody. We'll try and draw that for you another time. Maybe we should get a draw board here.
Oh, yes.
I actually don't want to do that
No,
because
that's in my
I've
head
seen
now.
your
I have to
drawing.
do it. Awesome. I can do a mean stick figure.
Okay. Yes, so where were we? Bringing it back, or reeling it back into the idea of whether or not we need to intellectualize the rediscovery of our soul purpose. Would that have made more sense to you? I remember some better verbiage for you next time. So, from your perspective, you would agree with me that it's probably best not to intellectualize the rediscovery of your soul purpose.
Well, I think as you said before, it's healthy up to a point, because you first have to become aware of it. When you're aware of it, then you can act on it. Right,
so we want all of you listeners to understand now that I'm just making them aware. Now they're aware.
They're aware. They're thinking. Good.
So they're thinking that there is actually a soul purpose going on here. That your life, even though however it looks and feels right now, there is something underlyingly divine and perfect just for you in this, you're here on purpose. This life was yours for the taking and for the making.
I think we all decided to be here. We all took on a body. We all incarnated at this specific space-time. We all decided to be here for this.
That's like we're going to a party. Sounds like fun.
It can be a party. That's right. That comes back to you get to choose whether it's
your perspective.
Yeah. So people don't realise that heaven and hell have the same address.
Oh right, what is it?
Between your left ear and your right ear. So
I could just jump right into that.
Yeah.
You've played that game
before. But that's we get caught into the trap of thinking too much.
Yes.
And a lot of that as well, I think, is because if we want to do something, right, we get the idea, then we get the thought, then we try to energize that thought, and then we're worried about what other people think about that. So that dampens said purpose.
Right.
And these days with social media and all that kind of stuff, back in my day, we,
Late 1800s.
1800s, thank you. We might just try to impress a friend or two or a brother, sister, parent, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Right. Today we have to impress 17 million people at a time.
17 million?
Okay, I'll reach for the stars. 100 trillion people.
There's not that many people on Earth. What are you talking about?
Use your imagination. The collective.
Okay, so all the souls on
Everyone.
Earth.
We quote unquote need to impress
All
as
the
many
souls.
people as we possibly can. Because if someone disagrees with our opinion, our goal, our purpose, even our emotion, how we're feeling, then that's like a poison dart.
Right, and it doesn't matter who it is. Like before it mattered if it was your mum and your dad, or at least under 7 it matters if it's your mum or your dad or your caretaker. Now it's more about everyone else.
Now we care about what someone on the other side of the planet thinks about our video or our whatever's out there.
Totally. Just a side note, I'm not going to care what people are.
I think by now you realise.
Yes. It's unfortunate, but fortunate. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So intellectualizing something that should be felt and experienced and embodied is probably.
What's better than embodying your own dream, right?
Oh, nothing. And you said last week you were talking about close your eyes. People would say they want to fly, close your eyes, and there you go, you just flew. And so last night I was close your eyes, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I'm just gonna fly around. And then I was just having a bit of a thinking process, and I was thinking, I'm like, wow, this is pretty funny how that is, like when you actually do that. Close your eyes and create whatever you want. And
well, have you know what remote viewing is? So that's travelling by the astral plane. You can fly there.
Yeah.
And you're there at the thought of now.
Yeah.
So.
How cool. How often do you do that, Matt?
I've done it for a while. I'm due.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Do you have to set yourself up in a special way?
I personally.
Alright, we should write this down as another option.
We'll do an episode on that.
Right. Sounds good. Yeah, okay. So I feel like we've kind of got to the end of my question. That is that maybe we should just live in this now moment in time that we chose rather than trying to rediscover whether I was meant to be a gardener.
Well, I think it's important you've got to be really clear in the rediscovering to make sure it's yours, not what someone else wants you to be.
Yeah, right. So we take off the layers of mum and dad and society and what was the other one? Religion, and we kind of take those layers off. But yeah, that's big. That's big work.
I mean, what's the hardest thing we can do in this life?
Take those layers off.
Be yourself.
Right.
So, I can't remember, I think it's Joseph Campbell, the privilege of a lifetime is being yourself.
Yeah, okay.
So if you can stay connected to that part of you, whether you hit the bumps or not, whether you let go of the oars or however you get there, you'll be on your purpose anyway.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes we just become a little bit unconscious of certain things for whatever reason, and we need what Paul Chet we call the pain teacher to use as little bumper, what are they called? Bump bowling things, to steer us in that other direction.
To bring us back in.
So it's really an opportunity to learn about you, and that's really the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
You learning about you.
Yeah, fantastic. I feel like that about does it for my question.
Did I answer it?
I don't know. I think I answered it for me, and you just jumped in at the end after you re-understood what I was saying. But I think having a bit of an awareness, I think, is the biggest thing. And then once you've got that awareness, then you can do with it what you want. But obviously, I would recommend not thinking about it too much and trying to feel into what it feels like to actually be in contentment and joy and be on the tower and be in that resonance and vibration that actually just lights you up in a way that you're like, wow, this is life. This is what love is. This is where I really belong, and I chose this place. I chose this moment in time. We all know what the feeling of, you know, the powers that be that created this change that was related to, you know, an illness, and we all got really worried and scared, and you know, we had to find a way out and all these things, and all of a sudden we're sort of in a war zone against this bug, and now we are coming, like, we're sort of post that now, but we're also, there's like this whole new movement of like this twist that's trying to like, oh, do we stay back where we were, and do we keep intellectualizing everything, and do we keep thinking, and and then there's this big pull, I feel, in the other direction that's kind of saying, well, in our realm, in our world, is sort of pulling us back, going, you know what, no, like, let's feel in, let's remember that we're here for a purpose, that we chose this moment in time. And then in choosing this moment in time, we get to choose how we perceive that.
Yeah, I think that if the last couple of years has taught us anything, is that as a culture, a society, we do overthink, and that creates just a culture of scientific materialism.
Yeah.
Right? But as you say, there is a huge calling to get back to well, how does this feel to us? We get told what to do, so we just do it. Right? That's the overthinking. That's the paradoxically not thinking, but it's the overthinking at the same time, which is really like the child archetype coming back online and taking over. So that's the unconscious action, and we can just find that place to, firstly, for a lot of people, is letting themselves off the hook.
Yeah.
And when they can let themselves off the hook and allow themselves permission to feel good,
yeah,
that's when you'll have the capacity to actually chase that purpose. Because for some people, it takes kind of spiritual kahunas to follow that.
Yeah, okay. To actually identify with what feels good.
Identify, then follow up with it.
Yeah, okay. Big, beautiful stuff, Matt.
That's why we're here.
We'd like to thank you, listeners, for listening in today, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you, guys.
Peace out.
See you next week.